All right, guys. I hope your day is going great. All right, this is going to be my my teaching video for the day. We're going to skip right to the math. I believe it's assignment number 2. Okay, assignment number 1 kind of had you working on coloring in equivalent fraction bars, so hopefully you've done that. We're moving on to the actual assignment, the 1 through 5, and then it has a section that's called, what's it called? Words for the wise. So we're going to do the words for the wise first. That is all the vocabulary words that are going to be pretty important for this section. All right, stay tuned. All right, guys, here are all the important words that we're going to be going over. Words of the wise. So we have denominator, we have equivalent fractions, and I know there's a lot on here, but what's really cool about the video, all you need to do is pause it whenever, and you'll have all of the information right here for you. So we have denominator, we have equivalent fractions, we have what a fraction is, we have a model, we have numerator, and then we have what's called simplest form. So as far as our denominator is concerned, I circled the denominator. It's the number underneath the fraction bar. The total number of pieces a whole is split into. So whatever object we're talking about, this is the total number that it's split into. Okay. We're going to jump down to numerator. The numerator is the number showing how many parts of the denominator are taken. For example, we have 3/4, the same as up here, but we have 3/4 here. 3 parts are taken out of the 4. Should also remember that fractions are nothing more than division problems. So when we're looking at this fraction, this is saying 3 divided by 4. Okay, it's the number represented by 3 divided by 4. And we've done that in calculators before. Okay, number 2 says equivalent fractions. And equivalent has that word at the very beginning that looks like equal. So that's what we're going to try to think of when we think of equivalent fractions. Fractions that represent the same amount. They don't necessarily have the same number, so that's why I wrote this. Fractions that have different numerators and denominators but represent the same amount. So we all know that 1/2 equals 2/4. That also equals 4/8, and that also equals 8/16. These are equivalent fractions. Okay, they all represent the same amount. If you added 1/2 of a pizza, it's the same as having 8/16 of the pizza. As the denominator gets larger, the pieces just get smaller, and you have more of them. So a fraction. A fraction is a numeral representation of a part of a whole item. So right here I just drew a whole circle, one whole circle, and I shaded 3/4 of the parts right there. Now it's very important that when you do a model, this is the next one, when you draw a model, you want to make sure that you understand that all the parts have to be equal. Okay? It's very important that all of the parts are equal that you're separating it into. We've already gone over, so a model is just a drawing with labels, a visual representation with labels. Coming down here, we've already kind of gone over numerator. Okay, it's the number at the top of the fraction bar. It's the parts that are taken out of the total number of parts. Now, simplest form is tough. Simplest form, you may hear this as somebody saying, simplify your fractions. So the simplest form of a fraction is when the numerator and denominator in the fraction are represented by the lowest possible numbers. So if you're given the fraction 6/10, you can divide both 6 and 10 by 2. So that means it's not in the simplest forms. Okay, simplest form would be 3/5. If you wanted to try to divide these, there are no factors that they have in common except for 1. So you could not divide either one of, you couldn't divide the 3 or the 5 by the same number, except for 1, and then you'd end up with the same fraction, 3/5. Okay. A lot of students have a hard time with this because they're like, well, wait a minute, we're changing the numbers. However, you're not. You are literally dividing 6/10 by 1 because 2 over 2, 2/2 equals 1. So if you know your rules of division, any number divided by 1 equals that number. So 10 divided by 1 equals 10. 25 divided by 1 equals 25. So that can prove to you that they stay the same amount. Okay, those are equivalent fractions. All right, now to the assignment. Okay, number 1, the way we're going to do this assignment is I'm going to start by going over some of the answers with you. Okay. And then I'm going to leave some of them for you to do on your own. All right. So your assignment was to answer. Sorry, let me move this up a little bit. Your assignment was to answer 1 through 5. This is math assignment number 2 for 4th grade. And draw a picture or represent the words for words of the wise. We've already done that, okay? Number 1, you were given different pictures, okay? And they were all separated into different amount of pieces, and different amount of those pieces were shaded. However, the answer to it was P and R. P represented 1/3 and R represented 2/6. These are equivalent to each other, okay? And if I was to draw these, it's always hard to draw thirds and sixths, but I'll try the best I can. Almost like a peace sign, but not all the way. So this would be, okay. So 1/3, you could shade that right there. And then 2/6, we'd shade 2 out of the 6. And you can see right there that they are pretty much the same amount is shaded. Remember, like I said before, when the denominator gets bigger, the pieces get smaller, and then you end up having more of them to make it equivalent. Number 2 says, shade 1/4 of the pie. Okay, so here I put in here the difficulty or the challenge to this. It says to shade 1/4 of this pie. However, you may notice that this pie is not separated into fourths. It's separated into eighths. So this deals with equivalent fractions. We need to find an equivalent fraction. So it says the difficult and tricky part is that the pie is in 8 pieces and not 4. You need to figure out how many eighths are in 1/4. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we can act like this is separated into fourths. Let's do this by doing the model. That's separated into half. Now we're separated into fourths. 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 pieces, 4 pieces, okay? This is the model way to do this. So I want to shade 1 of those fourths. Okay, I did it. So how many eighths is that? If you said 2/8, you're correct. Good. All right, the next part, the number 2 says, write 3 equivalent fractions that represent the fraction not eaten. Okay, this went along to the second part, said that she went along and ate 2 more pieces. So here's your, I'm sorry, I made a mistake right here. This should be 2/8. This right here is your 2/8 that was gone the first part right here. There's 2/8. This right here, she ate 2 more pieces. So actually total she's eaten how many pieces? 4 out of the 8. Makes the amount that she ate and the amount she didn't eat the same. She ate 4 and there's still 4 left. Okay, so now you need to come up with 3 equivalent fractions for 4/8. Now, you may ask, how in the world do you do that? Well, it's something that is always a rule with fractions, that if you want to find equivalent fractions, you either need to divide or you need to multiply by the same number for the numerator and the denominator. So you either need to multiply or divide by 1. All different forms of 1. So we could actually multiply 4 and 8 by any number. They just have to be the same. Let's try it. Let's multiply this by 10/10. We get 10 times 4 is 40. 8 times 10 is 80. So there's 1, 40/80ths. Some students may say, well, wait a minute. How is 40/80ths and 4/8 equal or equivalent to each other? Well, think about it. If you have this pizza right here, or this pie, whatever, or this circle, and you cut it into 80 pieces, those pieces are going to be really small. Okay? So, of course, you're going to have more of them to equal 4/8, because now you have 80 pieces instead of 8. If you take this many away, that means you have to take more away. So 48/80ths is equal to 4/8. Now I want to see if you guys can come up with 2 more fractions that are equivalent. I'm going to say one of them, I know that 4 and 8, I know there's a relationship there. you learn all this stuff about, we've learned in the past, in previous years, about friendly numbers and all that good stuff. And you also have learned how to recognize when a number is half of another number. And 4 just happens to be half of 8, which gives us another equivalent fraction, 1/2. Now I want you to think to yourself, what would you need to divide both of these by to get 1/2? Four divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So we would have to divide by 4 over 4. Okay, your job is to come up with one more. Okay, moving on to number 3. Moving on. Another equivalent fraction problem. Okay. It's asking you to come up with equivalent fractions for 3/5. And we did that. And I showed you how to do that right here. My challenge to you is come up with 3 more equivalent fractions for this. Okay. Number 4, once again, it's all about equivalent fractions. I want you once again to look at 2/3 and how could you figure out. So this is kind of a cool one. I want to know what you did to this 3. What did you multiply this 3 by to get 12? You multiplied the 3 by what to get 12? Well, 3 times 4 maybe? Now, remember that rule that I said earlier? Whatever you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. Whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So, I'm going to leave this with you. We did times 4 here. We have to multiply by 4 here. There's your answer. Okay. Number 5, I'm leaving you up on your own to that. However, what I did was there was 3/4 shaded to begin with, and I drew these dotted lines here to show you how I separated into 8ths. Now we no longer have 4ths, we have 8ths. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8ths. And how many are shaded? 6. So I believe it asks you to do one more thing. Like I said, this was a quick math video. What I want you to do is, you can always email me, you can leave comments. Once again, most of your parents have my cell phone number. I'm going to continue to do videos like this. My next video this week will probably have to do with some of the readings that we're doing and maybe some extra activities that you could do to make it a little bit more interesting. All right, guys. I sure do miss you guys, and I'm hoping that more than just our classes following along with these 4th grade videos. A lot of the ideas and a lot of things I talked about in this video were because parents asked the questions. So please ask questions. Send me emails. I'm available every day. So make sure you do that. All right, guys. I hope that you guys continue to hang in there. Be safe. Wash your hands. All that good stuff. All right. Take it easy, guys. Bye.